Yo, what up, guys? It's been a couple months because, bro, like, as you can see, I got this black eye right here. You know, it was like a really traumatic experience, so I just had to take 2 months off, but I'm back. By the way, welcome to the laptop setup. I think this is the first ever laptop vid. As you can see, we got Windows XP installed on here. Everything's looking nice and nostalgic. So in the previous video, I show you how to scan your network for different devices. And you know, this is kind of like the part 2, but like the nerdy part 2. And in this video, I'm going to go over some of the main ports that at least I look for. And this is important knowledge because, you know, if you really want to be like a network navigator doing all sorts of stuff on any network, you got to know ports. That's just like part of the process. So bang, this is you right here, and you just scanned a bunch of devices on your network. So let's say I either used Nmap or Angry IP, and I found 3 active hosts on my network. A port is anywhere from 1 to 65,000. The way that I like to think about it is that if the computer is the house, then the ports are the doors to the house. And you could have a house with like bricked up windows, locked doors, you know, metal bars over the windows, or you could have like a trap house that's, you know, open to everyone. So, you know, as a penetration tester, those are extremely important because that's how you gain that initial access. So the port number can like really be anything. That doesn't actually matter. But what matters is the service connected to that port, because you could have any service running on any port. I think it's important not to confuse those. But yeah, the port is just a number. It can be anything. It's a variable. But the service is what's actually behind that door, what's behind that port, what's being opened up to the world or to the network, you know? Because if you're doing this locally, it's only open to the network. But if we're talking about like servers and external networks, then it's open to the whole world. But most of the common services usually have like a specific port, like a default port that most people keep. And even if it doesn't, Nmap actually does this automatically, but you can pretty much discover what's going on any port. So let me show you real quick. So this is called banner grabbing, and it's pretty much we're just connecting raw to that port and seeing whatever strings or information we pull from there. So like I said, you can use netcat or curl. I'm going to use netcat. So this is just, you know, a random example IP that I found. But let's say you scanned your network, this is what you found, and you see that port 22 is open, which is the most common port for SSH. And you want to double check that it's SSH. You type in netcat, put in the host, put in the port, and okay, boom, we see open SSH 8.0. So yeah, this is just called banner grabbing, where we're pretty much seeing what service is running on it. And yeah, like I said, Nmap does this automatically. But yeah, this is just like, you know, a little extra sauce. So let's get right into which ports I look for. So first one is going to be port 21, which is FTP, which stands for File Transfer Protocol. This is pretty much like the OG file transfer system. This is pretty much the OG, you know, file transfer protocol. It's in the name. And a computer with the FTP server open means pretty much it has a door open to its files. And if the log on that door is outdated and old, there might be a way to bypass it. If they're using default credentials, you know, that's another way, and on and on and on. So yeah, FTP, that's the first one. So CMD actually comes built in with an FTP client. You just have to go open and then put in the IP and it'll connect if FTP is open. All right, so the next port, like we just went over, is port 22, which is SSH. I'm pretty sure it stands for Secure Shell. I'm not sure, but this is pretty much used as like a newer alternative to Telnet, which I'll get into in a sec. But pretty much it's used to access another computer's command line. And this is pretty powerful because you got to defend yourself against this. If an attacker gets access to your SSH server, it's pretty much a remote shell. And from a command line, they can do anything. They can, you know, download any other file. They can, you know, delete stuff. They can run commands. It's pretty much full access into your PC. And moving on to port 23, Telnet, it's pretty much the same thing as SSH, but less secure. So there's a lot more vulnerabilities. It's much less stable. If you actually have any experience with Telnet servers, you know how like laggy and glitchy and weird they can be. Next, we have port 80, which is HTTP. This is just like a web page. Next, we have 139. This one is a little more complicated. So this one is this is like the RPC protocol, I'm pretty sure. It's pretty much used to remotely execute, you know, functions and things on other computers. It's kind of really connected with Samba and NetBIOS, which is a lot easier to understand. We'll get into that. But yeah, this is just something to look out for because, you know, if you do a vulnerability scan for this port or this service, some things might come up. By the way, this video is for educational purposes only, and I'm only teaching you this so you acquire the knowledge you need to defend yourself and others, or if you're a cybersecurity expert or analyst, to do your job. But yeah, next, port 443. This is pretty much the same thing as HTTP, except the data that's being sent from the server into the client is encrypted. So if you're running like a ARP spoofing attack or something, that does get in your way. But when it comes to like web exploits, there's not much of a difference. And next we have 445. Bang. So this is SMB or Samba or NetBIOS or whatever you want to call it. And I might make a whole video on this thing on its own, because there's so many ways that this service can be attacked. It's just like insane. Starting off the basics, you have brute forcing and stuff, and then you have PS exec, and then you have all sorts of Windows 0-day exploits, and on and on and on. Like, I've made tools that pretty much just rely on this, and it's like 6 different methods of getting access. So like I'm telling you, SMB is like a big one. But SMB on its own, it's used just to like basically the same as FTP, just to like access other file shares. That's what they're like, file shares. It's like a folder that's shared across a network. But there's so much that can happen through that. Yeah, it's wild. Next we have 3389. This is RDP, remote desktop protocol. Oof, one of my favorites. So I mean, this is exactly what it sounds like. This is what computers use to connect to each other and basically control each other's PC. Think of it as like the built-in team viewer of Windows. It's definitely more secure than SMB for sure. It's a lot harder to find a hole in RDP, but it still is possible. And yeah, that's one to keep an eye out for. And last but not least, the port that I look out for is 5900, which is VNC, virtual network computing. Pretty much the same as RDP, except this is, you download the server and the client off the internet. This is just the port that it uses, and it's just pretty common, but also pretty old. So yeah, I mean, I'd say this is like the rough list. There's a lot more stuff, but I'd say these are like the basics that I would recommend anyone who's into doing network stuff to know. If you found this video interesting and you want a part 2, let me know. If you want me to go in depth on any one of these, I could absolutely make a video going in depth on literally any one of these, because I used to like just go super deep on every single service. So let me know which one you'd be interested in. And that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.